say I was to write an autobiography on your life. And of course, it will be filled with good things, bad things, and some boring things. And it would be okay for me to give my personal opinion on your life story. The issue would be if I decide to erase your contributions of your life story and then decide that I would take credit for them as if I were in your life. Your family, if they really knew you, they wouldn't appreciate that at all. And if they was really your family, they would, gunshots! They'd probably bust a cap on my ass and get me up out of there, because nobody wants anyone to lie on their history. But because I got close enough to your family or close enough to you, I might actually feel entitled on eliminating your contributions and then throwing my own in there. And this is what's been happening in Black America. And you've seen these situations occurring because of the Brown and Black Coalition. Now, the Black and Brown Coalition was started, I believe, somewhere in the mid-60s in Chicago. This was supposed to bring Latinos and Blacks who were both suffering from white supremacy together to fight one common enemy. And then we found out in the South Bronx, it wasn't all cracked up to be what we thought.
You often hear many of these Afro-American Negroes talking about some sort of Black-Brown coalition, like there is some sort of political alliance between Afro-American Negroes and Hispanics. Well, I can tell you from living here in the South Bronx that there is no Black-Brown coalition. I've lived here in the South Bronx for 42 going on 43 years, and there is no coalition whatsoever. Hispanics pretty much have all the economic and political power here in the Bronx. And they didn't take it from the Afro-American Negro. The Afro-American Negro gave it to the Hispanics in the community.
Now this is interesting because the South Bronx, or the Bronx in general, is credited with creating hip hop. And that culture of hip hop spread all across the world, and we understand it. Then Fat Joe basically said that Latinos did this.
They've been like lately talking about Latinos wasn't in rap and this and this. These guys are delusional. We're from the Bronx, New York. It happens. And so when hip hop started, it's Latino and Black, half and half. But they going at me because I'm like the only Spanish dude, like really with a big voice. And Latinos wasn't there. You was invited. You are a specimen. I don't know what is up with these people that don't know their facts.
Now that's been the narrative for a long time. Black people were pushing back on that narrative, and we all know where that went. It took Fat Joe to go on the Math Hoffa's podcast saying that FBA was a bunch of broke N-words. And then, as we know, FBA clapped back and clapped back pretty hard. Fat Joe was getting trolled online, and it got so bad that Fat Joe decided to do something about it.
I resigned as host of the BET Hip Hop Awards because it's real. 2 Chainz said I've been monopolizing, so he said, yo, let me host. I know I could be a good host. I said, you know what, my brother? You could be the host next year.
He retired from the BET Awards. That happened abruptly, which is really crazy because Fat Joe is not African American. But again, when it befits him and he has an opportunity to grift from another community, one that he actually dislikes, it's okay. I guess it's fine for him to give back something that he never qualified for in the first place. But as we know, Fat Joe decided that he would continue on rapping and doing his thing. And that leads us to this post that Brother Tariq put up on his Twitter just the other day, where Fat Joe decided that he would go kick it in Chicago. And then something interesting happened. Fat Joe came on the stage and got booed. People weighed in on the conversation with many different thoughts and ideas. Let's check out CC Freeman. Were they booing him because Black American freemen are on code and letting Fat Joe know that he is not a part of our culture and won't get away with disrespect? Or was it because the sound system was bad? I hope it was because we're on code. Then another person says, I thought FBA was just on the internet. Another person goes, why would they boo Joe? That's not like the Shy. This one's interesting. I find this hard to believe. Chicago got hella Puerto Ricans. Also, why don't they show the crowd? Because anybody can add a booing sound effect. This person goes, you're spot on, Tariq. Fat Joe's comments about hip hop and black people have been out of line, especially considering the culture he benefited from. It's wild how quick some are to rewrite history and disrespect the very foundation they stand on. The whole illusion of black and brown unity is just that, an illusion. The anti-black sentiment in Latin America is real, and they're often the first to sell black people out when it's convenient. The boos in Chicago send a clear message. You don't get to bite the hand that built you and expect applause. Respect is earned, not owed. Why would they pay to see him? But then another clip came about where this brother who was locked up in prison with some Puerto Ricans said this.
A Spanish person is black all day, blacks all day. They are gross. But as soon as the Spanish people or person get around their kind, 4 or 5 deep, preferably, more is crazy. But if they get about 4 or 5 of them, they're gonna start talking Spanish. And then they're gonna start talking about you, or one of them gonna start talking about you in Spanish, you know what I'm saying? And they're gonna be, you gonna hear black, moreno, and all that. You're gonna see that it's gonna be racist first. When you go to the prison system, I don't care how cool you is with the Spanish dudes, you know what I'm saying? You get 1, 2 Spanish dudes, if they stay too deep, they cool as hell, they black, you know what I'm saying? But 5 of they kind coming in, you'll see that they will start eating together.
In his honest opinion, Puerto Ricans is cool and they black when it's a few of them. But when a lot of them come, all of a sudden, they start to differentiate themselves. And that leads me to a greater conversation about the city of Chicago as a whole. You see, Chicago has a large Puerto Rican population. And not only that, a large Latino population in a city that is divided a lot by race. Chicago is the most segregated city in America. And if anybody knows about segregation, black Chicagoans know it. Now remember, the migrant crisis hit Chicago very hard. And because it did, it forced a lot of blacks out of their parks and homes on the south side and the west side. And a lot of these immigrants that came into the south side and the west side were, you guessed it, Latino immigrants, raising up crime in those areas and also making things hard for African Americans. So if anybody would understand how much this black and brown coalition don't work, black Chicagoans know it. And black Chicagoans are the one that's been raising the most hell out of any other minority group in America when it comes to the migrant crisis. So when people are saying this is booze or it could be fake, no, it's not fake. I believe these are the growing tensions that have been happening in Chicago between African Americans and Hispanics for a long time. And for somebody like Fat Joe, who built his career off the African American community, he needs to understand how he was disrespectful. Now, I want to go back to the first guy who talked about the situation, Brother Sean James, with African Americans basically giving their power away to those people in the Latino community. Now, some may not agree with that assessment and say that's just a little bit too much, but you can give your culture away or your community away by just being apathetic. And if you're not developing businesses in your community, if you're not working with your community, you will give it away because you're letting somebody else come in and do the work that you should be doing. So what happens? They get to rewrite history and they get to be able to say, we built this country. That's what you hear John Leguizamo saying. That's something that only African Americans used to be able to say because of the slave trade. Now you're hearing other people come in and say, they didn't build the country, we built this country. And now that we got our numbers up, it's us that have a $3 trillion economy, not them. We are the largest voting bloc, not them. Then African Americans, or hashtag FBA, we tend to get upset with that. But the reality is, if you don't put in the work, if you don't develop your community, somebody comes in and develops the things for you, for themselves, and then they take credit for what you have, and then they're entitled and they get mad because you didn't let them walk over you. I know that's crazy, right? For somebody to take your accomplishments as theirs and then get mad at you for not wanting to share it with you. But you can never go to the Puerto Rican community or to the Latino community and get any of their accomplishments, because if you do, you're gonna find out real quick that that's hashtag Puerto Rican pride or hashtag Latino pride. But that's what happens when you don't care. And being apathetic basically just means that you don't care. You don't have an interest in this, or you don't have an interest in that. And now with the booing coming with Fat Joe, a lot of other artists are starting to understand that, yo, this is not really cool for me to be out here like that. This is not really straight for me to be out here living like this, because man, these people out here are seriously not playing with me. And it has to be more than just booze. We actually need action behind it. We need, as we know, people that work together, people that support each other, people that have a common goal, people that have commonalities in what they want to have as far as achievements and what you want to see for your community. And the reality is always going to be this: if you don't build it for your community, you will never have it for your community. And those people who do want it more than you are going to go ahead and say that they did everything, and while you did nothing. And you might want to say that your ancestors did this and that, but people are not going to care. They're going to go out there and still disrespect you because, again, a lack of effort allows everybody else to come in and eat off your work. So guys, what do you think? It's your boy O'Shea Duke Jackson back at it again with another episode of The Celebrity Junk. I appreciate you for all that you do. Subscribe, hit the bell. We're out.